Hey guys, Stealth here. Welcome to the War Room. It's another Monday, so I get to preach and talk about whichever psychology subject has got my interest this week. And this week is going to be languages, but before we kick that off, I wanted to say a big thank you to all the Patreon supporters. You guys really help me keep the channel going, you guys help me keep the TeamSpeak going, and I am very grateful for your support. If you'd like to join the Patreon supporters, there's a link in the description that tells you how you can do that and help out me and my channel. Anyway, with that, let's move on to the main topic, which is language today. And I got to language after seeing the movie called Arrival. It's in cinemas right now, and it's a movie that deals with the arrival of an alien species. Now, normally, when something like that happens, Hollywood goes nuts, brings out Michael Bay, and everything ends in fireworks. This movie is very different from that, as this movie is asking the questions, how would we interact with these people? I mean, we normally assume that any sort of person can understand us. We try to communicate as best as we can. But even across our own planet, it's sometimes really difficult to make contact with other people. You just don't know what they're saying, you can't understand their language, there's cultural differences, there's dialects. All of this is making it more difficult to understand what the other person is saying. And that is the same species. So how does it work if you come across a species that is completely different? Something like the situation that is happening inside the movie of Arrival. Now, what happens in this movie, and I'll try not to spoil it too much, is that an alien race arrives on Earth. And instead of just going to an all-out shooting war, they're asking the question, how do we communicate? And that really boils down to the basis of language. Because language is used as a means to define an object, a person, something, a concept. Let's go with that term, a concept. And initially, for example, when you were a kid, your parents taught you that these things that drive on the road, they're cars. Which means that basically everything that has four wheels, an engine, and a couple of seats in it was probably known as a car. And later on, you would learn how to distinguish that into multiple different sorts of things. You would say, hey, well, this is not specifically any car. This might be a truck, or this might be an SUV, or it might be a sports car. And with that, you basically get a deeper understanding of that specific item, or of that specific category. Same that we, for example, started out with computers. Everything is a computer when you're a kid. An iPad is a form of a computer, a laptop is a form of a computer, a MacBook, a desktop, it doesn't matter what the platform is, it's a computer. But as you gain more understanding into a specific area, you start to understand that there are multiple different variants. You become, as most psychologists would call it, a connoisseur of a topic. And with that you become more critical, and you learn how to distinguish the different elements that there are. For example, we now know the difference between a laptop and a desktop. And this, for us, is quite easy, as we teach it from, or as we learn it from parents, we learn it from society, we learn it from everything, basically. But what if you encounter a race that doesn't have any of that? That doesn't potentially even have the concept of self? How do you communicate with them then? And that is exactly what this question, or what this movie goes into. Now, I looked into it a bit more after seeing the movie. And for example, Native American language called Hopi, it doesn't recognize time in the sense that we do. We, in mostly the English language, or English, sorry, I have not had a lot of sleep, so my speech might be a bit blurred. The English language defines, for example, measurements of time. We have hours, minutes, days, months, whatever. And with that, for example, you could say, hey, I wasted X amount of time on gaming, or I spent 3 hours preparing for this. But, for example, in the language called Hopi, they don't recognize time in chunks. They just don't have a word for it. And with that, their entire concept becomes different. They recognize time as a sort of cycle. So I'm not sure exactly how that works. I'm not sure if every day is the same for them, or if they have differences there. I haven't looked into it that deeply yet, as I haven't that much time, but it is definitely such a fascinating topic, because it also colors the way that we see the world. It is with the cars, but it's also, for example, with your place in society. From what I know, the more, let's say, Asian-oriented societies or the Asian-oriented cultures don't place that much emphasis on the self or on the I person. Whereas Western civilization seems to be completely individualized and completely, well, selfish might not be the right term, but you get what I'm going for. It's the way that you try to get ahead for yourself in Western civilization mostly. Whereas with other civilizations or with other cultures, let's say the more Oriental cultures, it seems to be more about society, which again covers or colors how you perceive the world and how you act. And this is such an important element of language that I don't think we can state that enough. Now, in this movie, it takes quite a while to learn how to talk to other species. And I was watching Star Trek when I grew up as a kid, and Star Trek has these beautiful things, these universal translators or communicators. And what they do is basically, whenever you talk to any old alien race, you just understand what they say and they understand you. It's a two-way communication. But that does not quite work out the way that it's likely to in most situations. For example, there is one situation or one episode that they dig a little deeper into the language where people say, hey, we don't talk in, for example, we don't talk about objects in the sense of relative location. So we don't say that the flask is on the desk or the money is next to the wallet. They give directions through location, and that is absolute location. So they, for example, would say the money is west of the wallet, or the money is to the north of the table. And this already changes the society and changes the way of communication. And then there are some cultures who communicate significantly by using metaphors and using history. There is one really, really famous episode, and if you're into language stuff like this, you should really look it up. It's called Darmok. It's an episode from Star Trek Next Generation, and it deals specifically with this issue. How does it work if you have a civilization or a race that doesn't really talk the way that we do, but instead talks in metaphors or historic situations? How do you communicate with them? And how do you make your own message clear? Because you don't know their history, you don't know their culture, and therefore it might be very, very difficult to communicate with them. This is something that I find so incredibly fascinating, because it's on the, let's say, the split sector between communication, between psychology, culture, studying people, learning how other cultures work. It is just such a fascinating topic. So, if you have some time, and if you still want to go see a good movie, I really recommend the movie Arrival. It is absolutely fantastic if you're into this sort of stuff. If you're looking for a good action movie, by the way, don't go there. It's not very action-packed. It's really more along the lines of how do we talk to other races, or how does language work as a general term, basically. So, that about the psychology and communication. Let me know what your thoughts are down below on that. For me, definitely it has spurred on once again the drive to learn more languages. I speak Dutch, of course, as my native language. I speak English. I have a more or less working understanding of German, although I barely speak it. I speak some Italian. I can understand French. And that's basically the extent of my languages, but I want to extend that further. And there is a website that I'm going to be using, probably starting today. It's called Babbel, Babbel, and it teaches you how to, or it helps you learn languages through, for example, online courses, setting challenges for yourself, working with other people. And there's probably, if it works a little bit like the other language sites that I use, which are Memrise and Duolingo, it works a little bit like that, then there is a point system. And if you guys are interested and you also want to set yourself up for a challenge, learn a language, then these systems can really help you in the sense that you have to gain a basic amount of points per day in exercises. They're really, really fun most of the time. And if you want to join me, then let me know in the comments, and I'll probably set up a link down in the description to make sure that we can basically keep challenging each other, so you can get the most points, you can get the most learning done in a specific week, month, year, whatever. We'll see. That's just the concept that I'm working with. As for last week, not too much happened that was very interesting. I don't really have any clients lately, so I spend most of my time playing World of Warships, which in turn is not driving any traffic or contacts, but, well, it is definitely interesting. As for my girlfriend, she went shopping for wedding dresses, because yes, we're still engaged. That happened all the way back in January, but due to financial concerns, we just haven't been able to invest in the wedding or save for the wedding or stuff like that. So with her shopping for wedding dresses, I realized that it is getting closer. I realized that I really need to get my ass into gear, start saving significant amounts of money, because weddings are supposedly really expensive. And of course that really depends upon how you would like your wedding to be had, but still, quite the expensive hobby that. So she went shopping for dresses. She even sent me a picture of a dress. I won't be sharing it here, but bloody hell. I still find the concept of wedding dresses a bit, well, a bit unusual. Let's go with that. Because it's basically this thing, this piece of clothing, and it's probably very, very analytical of me to just describe it as such, but it's a piece of clothing worth, say, north of about 500 to 2,000 euros that you wear once. Once! I mean, what the hell? Most people just save their wedding dress for the rest of their lives, and then their children inherit it, and they go, yeah, that was fashionable 80 years ago. Toss it out. So, stuff like that is something that I don't really find that valuable for spending money at. And whenever I think of wedding dresses and the whole wedding concept, it's such an outdated concept, basically. Because basically what we have now is that we share resources. And that's basically what it came from. Two families who wanted to strengthen the bond between the families or merge them all together would have this wedding between a son and a daughter, for example. And they would then start to share resources between the family. So the daughter was supposed to be a virgin, the guy was supposed to have either potentially even never met the daughter, and therefore, as being a virgin, the daughter was perceived as white. That's what I believe that whole white thing comes from. Why the guy is then black, I'm not sure. That is something that I haven't really been able to decipher yet, so let me know what your thoughts are on that. But it's such a outdated concept, as we don't have to share resources anymore, at least not in the Western world. We are basically beyond that, significantly so. So that weddings have become a bit of a luxury item in that sense. And of course, it is something that, as a luxury item, companies will try to make money at. And from what I've seen, they have been very, very successful in making a lot of money off of it. I, for one, on the one hand, I mean, it's your wedding, so yeah. As they say nowadays, you only marry 3 times in your life, so I really don't hope to be doing that, by the way. But I don't find it such of an interesting concept. It's just basically the next stage of your relationship. And my girlfriend and I have been together for 10 years, and yes, I probably should have asked her before, but it just never occurred to me because it's just not that much of an issue for me. But of course for the ladies it's this whole woo-woo thing, and you have to at some point. And especially, maybe this is the older me talking, as you get older, as friends start to go through these, let's say, next life cycles of weddings and buying a house and getting children and shit, that's when it starts to feel a bit like social or a sort of pressure that, hey, everyone's doing it, so we probably should be doing it as well. Not really my sort of thing, but okay. It's something that has to be done, so that's something that she went shopping for. Didn't get anything yet, but it is something that is coming up closer, so I'll probably be talking about that a bit more over the next couple of war rooms. No date yet, so you don't have to pull out your calendar just yet. But it's something that is coming up sometime, probably halfway through next year. Anyway, as for gaming, I have spent a lot of time in World of Warships. Initially, I absolutely despised the British cruisers. They were just royally bad. But now, I'm at the tier 9, the Neptune. It is a fantastic ship. The Edinburgh before it is a really good ship. It just doesn't quite have the torpedo punch that the Neptune has, and it doesn't have the same amount of AA. This is something that is a massive improvement with the Neptune. She's also quite a bit bigger, but I really enjoy it. I also got the Des Moines. I finally got my first tier 10 heavy cruiser in that game. Took some getting used to. It's a different playstyle from Baltimore. And if you've played the Baltimore, then you probably know what I'm talking about. She's not anything special. The Baltimore is an okay ship, but she's not really that special. She doesn't have torpedoes, she has radar, she has pretty devastating armor-piercing rounds. HE is workable, but I found it a long grind through that ship. With the Minotaur, sorry, not the Minotaur, the Des Moines, it is definitely a step up. A big step up. So that is definitely something that if you are grinding the tier 10 or the US cruiser line in general, Des Moines is worth it. It's basically an Atlanta on steroids. And lots of steroids at that. I've also been playing quite a bit of Transport Fever, which you will continue to see on this channel. I finally got the hang of the game. You see, normally when I'm playing these transport games, I think that the transport services are dependent on supply. A company or a factory can only build so many items per month, year, whatever format of time they're using. That's not exactly so in this game. If you have, for example, a farm, it will not begin to produce unless it has demand. So when you're playing Transport Fever, keep that in mind, as it was something that I had to completely change my thinking about. It is a demand-driven economy. Companies and factories will only produce if there's demand. And, for example, for factories, this might seem that, for example, you have wood or logs that you transport to a factory that makes planks, and then at some point the factory that makes planks just stops accepting logs. That's because it has no demand for the planks. So it basically has this complete storage of planks and doesn't really know what to do with it. And this really caused me a lot of learning curve in the beginning of the game, because I was really not sure what was going on. But now that I do, the next episodes will surely be better. I have one more pre-recorded for tomorrow. So that is with basically the old knowledge, where I didn't quite know that it was resource or demand driven. But now that I do, the next episodes will be more clear. Talking about episodes, I have a posting schedule set in the description down below, so you can know what to expect when. I'll try to stick to this thing quite rigorously, and with that you know exactly which video to look out for what day, so that you don't come checking into my channel every day hoping for that one Wargame video or that Transport Fever video. I have a schedule. It's down in the description. Wargame has, of course, the new map, That's, from what I've seen, the only new thing that's going on, but I haven't been playing this game basically at all last week. Only did a couple of games to check out the new map. Russian Roulette, you're looking at it. Very, very sizable map. There are some things that I would like them to change. For example, this middle bit. Build a resource or a reinforcement zone in Juliet and have one over here in Romeo, and you might make the encounter in the middle a bit more interesting. It is a really, really large sector and reminds me a bit of Asgard, but without the reinforcement zones. So that's something that I would like them to change. But other than that, it's a really interesting new concept, as you never quite know where the next threat's going to come from. So, big thank you to Eugen for allowing us, or for getting us, a new map, which, keep in mind, the game has been out for well over 2.5 years, and they're still providing free new content for it. So that is something that I think we should be really appreciative of, as most companies nowadays would already be like, hey, you want to get a new map? Sure, break out your wallet, because you're going to need it. So, Eugen is a bit different from that. And I hope, of course, that in the meanwhile they're working on some new Wargame title. Wargame 4 was teased in Active Aggression, but I'm not sure what they're working on. And they're not a large studio, so they're working on supporting Wargame Red Dragon, they're working on supporting Active Aggression. I'm not sure if they have enough production capacity left to also be working on yet another title. I mean, I think they have to, because you just cannot keep hoping for new sales of Active Aggression or Wargame. So they have to be working on something, but so far I haven't heard anything. And of course, the moment I hear anything, I'll let you know. Anyway, that's it for this week's War Room. Make sure you have a look at that movie Arrival. I'll put a link in the description down below for the trailer, so you can have a look at that. Also, consider learning a new language. It doesn't have to be something that you do in a week. It's possible to do it in a week, it's just not very likely. And it is something that will definitely keep your mind busy. It will definitely give you something to think about, give you something to sink your teeth into. And if you want to learn a new language, why not learn it together? I'm going to sign up to Babbel, and if you want to join me, then by all means do, and perhaps we can learn it together. I'm going to be studying Italian for the foreseeable future. I've been looking into it before, and I'm going to be looking into it again. So that's my project for this week and many weeks to come, probably. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you have a good Monday. I hope you have a good week. Enjoy the videos. Let me know what your thoughts are always. And if you would like to support the channel, then consider becoming a Patreon supporter. Even for as little as $5 a month, you just help me out in continuing to make videos. So again, thank you to you guys. With that, thank you, see you soon, enjoy the videos, and have a good week.